2019. We'd done our purpose studies through Imperative. We'd had Purpose 828. Nicholas Pierce had come and spoken to us about the purpose path, but you were really struggling with this topic.
Yeah, I mean, it was a year of incredible self-reflection for me, even to the point of, me not feeling fulfilled at work. And I remember even sitting down with Christian, who was my boss at the time, and having conversations saying, hey, maybe I'm not on the right seat of the bus.
Join Charlie Maloof as he explores the personal journeys of Broad River Retail's very own memory makers. Welcome to Stories from the River.
Okay, well, welcome to the podcast, Will. This is the Will Luke episode. I've been really looking forward to getting you on here. How you feeling?
Excited.
This is Stories from the River, man. We're going to get going. And hey, welcome. Thanks for joining us. And Will, before we get going, I know you've been in retail for a long time before you joined Broad River. Why don't you take us through your career and your background before coming to the river?
Absolutely. So a little bit about me personally. I've got 3 kids, 12, 10, and 8, and that's obviously the most important to me, making sure that they are kind, curious, and self-aware. I absolutely love being outside. I'm sure we'll talk about that some more, traveling, hitting national parks. And I'm Canadian, so you can take from that what you want to take from that. And as far as career goes, I'll talk about my love of music. Music was my first love. And I remember back in 2004, I was living in a house with a bunch of guys, hoping I could make money off music, obviously a ill-fated belief. And I'd never had a job before that wasn't a blue-collar job, really introverted, really socially awkward, probably still am. And I took a seasonal job selling car audio and MP3 players, commission, retail sales. And really the rest is history. I fell in love with that, found fulfillment, found confidence, and the doors really opened for me. So progressed through sales leadership roles, store leadership roles, and I was with that company in Canada for about 5 years. Moved to North Carolina in 2009. I worked with H.H. Gregg for 8 years, so the majority of my career in consumer electronics. And with them, I held some store leadership roles, then district manager, regional manager, and then, of course, a training manager role as well. So H.H. Gregg went out of business, and that's really the series of events that led me to Broad River.
All right, Will, how long have you been with Broad River now?
Just celebrated my 5th year anniversary.
5th year. Well, congratulations. And can you take us through your career progression? I know you've had a little bit of an interesting kind of left turn and right turn here. So take us through your career progression with the river.
Absolutely. So I joined as a district manager with 3 stores, the Kannapolis, University, and Hickory home stores. And that progressed to having, I think, 5 stores in the Charlotte market. Mm-hmm. After my first year, I then was promoted to regional manager, and I was responsible for the stores in the Charlotte market and then also in the South region. So I believe that was 11 stores at the time that I was responsible for. Amazing teams that I got to work with, breaking records, driving sales results. And then, we'll talk more about this, but in 2019, kind of to 2020, all those conversations around purpose, mm-hmm. I think aligned with maybe some opportunities we had in the company to move into retail operations. So made the complete switch from offense to defense mm-hmm. In 2020, being in retail operations, and it's really been the most fulfilling role I've had in my career so far.
That's awesome. We are going to get a lot into that, although some might say retail operations is still offense, just a little bit different twist.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I remember, let's just go back to your interview. I remember your interview and how we had talked about your passion for retail. And not everyone really loves retail, but you did. And you had gotten out of it for a period of time, and then you really want to get back into retail. What is it about retail at that time or even today that you really enjoy?
So a couple things. Retail, you can be exhausted, but you'll never be bored. And I think just with who I am, loving being on my feet, loving the variety, problem solving, retail kind of provided, I think, that stimulus to keep me challenged and keep me moving. And of course, when a company goes out of business, you kind of find yourself saying, hey, do I really want to still work in retail? And as you mentioned, I did try a non-retail job for a few months, and hey, it was a great company. But in that time, I learned that, retail just had its hooks in me. And I loved just kind of the variety, the challenge. Some people have said that retail is like the competitive sport of business. So for me, I love kind of that daily challenge that retail brings.
Awesome. That's a great answer. I tend to believe that most people remember their first day at a new company. Do you remember your first day with Broad River? And if so, what do you remember about that day?
So I actually want to talk about a few days before my first day, if that's okay. So, those conversations when you can remember where you were when you had those conversations. I remember the call from Manny giving me the job offer, and I was in my dining room. I remember where I was sitting in my dining room. It's a great conversation with Manny, obviously accepted the job offer. And then maybe about 20 minutes later or so, I was upstairs and I got a series of calls from Christian Adams, Todd Jones, who were going to be my leaders at the time with Broad River. And they just called to congratulate me, tell me how excited they were to be working with me. And it was just so authentic and so genuine. And I think at a time where maybe my confidence was not at a high, getting back into retail, starting a new job, it gave me such excitement knowing that I'd made the right decision.
That's really cool. But do you remember the first day? Those are the few days before. Was it still also a good first day?
It was a great first day.
Yeah, I'm sure you went to like Flipside Cafe or something.
Flipside Cafe. I remember Christian saying, you don't have to wear a tie. So that was exciting.
Got it. Okay. So you've made the crossover, you alluded to this, from retail performance to retail operations. And it seems like, I will agree with your statement, it seems like you've really found your groove now. Would you agree with that sentiment?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. And what led you to unpack the opening a little bit more? What led you to making that transition at the beginning of 2020?
Yeah. So I think it's a culmination of quite a few things. We obviously had our year of purpose, speakers coming in talking about purpose and identity. And that really pushed me into introspection, feeling, hey, maybe I don't have a really good identity, feeling like I'd maybe made a lot of my identity through my career, who I was at work versus who I was at home. And then really examining kind of what as I grew in that self-awareness, I started to be aware of the things that made me feel really fulfilled and the things that maybe didn't make me so fulfilled. And of course, I wanted to more of the things that made me fulfilled. So I mentioned, having conversations with Christian about, hey, I love my job and I love this company, but I don't know that I'm doing the thing that best aligns with what my talents are and what makes me fulfilled. And then I think a layer that I'll put on that is my work trauma, right? So working with two amazing companies that grew quickly and went out of business. So feeling that I got a front row seat for kind of the really good and maybe some of those opportunities. And so wanting to be a part of creating that infrastructure in a new role. So of course, I think it aligned with an opportunity we had at Broad River to start kind of setting up a retail operations team, and the rest is history.
Yeah. So, okay. That's really cool. So can you explain what is retail operations and why is it so critical to our company's success?
Yeah. So retail operations is really all the things that happen in the store to keep it functioning well, other than the sales process. So really the guardrails, the systems, SOPs, and policies that keep the experience great for the guest. You've heard many different metaphors from me, whether it be retail for the or oil for the retail engine. And I like to talk about kind of some of the mindsets of our retail team, some of the things they hear from me a lot. Success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. That's a Jim Rohn quote. And then a fence at the top of the cliff is better than a hospital at the bottom. So I think that's really the essence of what we hope to do, is be really proactive to protect the company, protect the assets, and to protect the guest experience.
You guys are going to have to hit rewind or go back 15, 30 seconds, whatever, and listen to some of these quotes there. Will is dropping some of his nuggets here. So how did your 2+ years in retail performance prepare you for your current role in retail operations? I mean, I have to assume that the tribal and intrinsic knowledge has been invaluable to you to a certain degree.
Yeah, I think it's two things. So if you remember when I first joined, I think we had a vacancy in the university store, and then a little bit later we had a vacancy in the Gastonia store. So I had to spend some time running those stores. And of course, when you join as a district manager, then you got to run a store. You're like, okay, I'm not sure that I really want to do this. But that experience gave me that front row seat to learn kind of our culture, to learn our processes, really see the business through the eyes of the guests, and really understanding the business at that fundamental level. And then the next layer of that is you experience the culture, you fall in love with it, and then you become loyal to it. So I think that loyalty really bleeds into the retail operations job, where we feel our job is to really protect the company.
It's really good. I love the connection from DM, but doing a GM's work and how that translates from like retail performance to doing retail operations work. So now you work with our REMs. By the way, what's an I don't know why we do all these acronyms. What is an REM and what does that title even mean?
All right. So our retail experience managers, they're amazing. They are really the glue that holds the store together, and everything they do really directly or indirectly affects the guest experience. So whether it be dealing with issue resolution, walking the front door, managing our order accuracy program, our inventory program, the brand reputation in the store. They wear so many hats to keep HFCs happy. Maybe sometimes they're a therapist for our HFCs in the store, and really keeping everything in that store going smoothly.
How do they support the general manager?
Every good offense needs a good defense. So when we're doing our job well, I think we're protecting the general manager so that they can be most engaged in the sales process and, of course, impacting more revenue.
Okay. So in retail performance, our stores compete for pride in a few categories, right? One of which is the Yoda Award for Store of the Month. In retail ops, and I don't know how this came about, but you've launched the Gandalf Award. And what a really cool name. What's the story behind the name?
Yeah, so I think we were long overdue with coming up with Gandalf, and I think we kind of just got in a room and started thinking, okay, what's comparable to Yoda? So I think we looked in that kind of sci-fi fantasy realm. Lord of the Rings obviously is an option there, and kind of going through different characters. I don't know who it was that said Gandalf, but when the name came out, we immediately knew it was the right one. And I think you talked about this with Kelly Jones when she was on the podcast. But Gandalf's kind of notable quote is, "You shall not pass." And I think that really pegs to what our REMs do in the store, as sometimes they're the gatekeepers of kind of right and wrong in the store.
Okay. Project Breakwater, one of our company's top 4 initiatives right now that's emerged or has risen to the top of the pile during the pandemic. Something we call Project Breakwater. What is Project Breakwater and why is it important?
Yeah, so Project Breakwater was really born out of the increase of cancellations we saw during the pandemic. Whether it be our ability to get product to guests quickly and maybe them not being able to wait, or maybe their life circumstance changed where they no longer needed that product. And so certainly there's a business reason and benefit for us preserving that revenue. But I see Project Breakwater about our guests, right? And even still current day, it's about setting our guests up for success, setting clear expectations with them when they make the purchase, communicating with them excellently kind of throughout that process, knowing where their product is, and really just making sure that there's no surprises and they're getting the product when we committed for them to get the product.
So how did you come up with the name Project Breakwater, or what's behind the name?
Yeah, so this one was a collaboration with me and Sam Bloom.
Okay,
and we've collaborated some other names in the past, and I think we just got on a call, throwing a lot of bad ideas back and forth. That's kind of how I work. I have to say a lot of stupid things, and this was one of those ones that we said, and we knew immediately it was it. So of course, Breakwater protects a shoreline from erosion during a storm, and the pandemic is really that storm on Broad River. So Breakwater is really all of our efforts to stem those cancellations and protect kind of the shores of Broad River during the storm.
I think it's a perfect name. So have you made any progress with Project Breakwater? Like, are you starting to see some sustainable traction?
Absolutely. I think there's so many great signs. I think a lot of our success here has to go to the supply chain team and Project Ship with how hard they're working to get products to guests. But right now we have almost half of our stores that are performing close to or at our pre-pandemic baselines.
Oh, wow.
And then I think, I looked a little bit earlier. Year to date, we've beaten 28 of 37 weeks compared to last year. So really positive signs that we're able to get product to guests sooner, which is ultimately, I think, the crux of this.
Okay. Well, those are both exciting lead measures there. So when do you think our mode of operating will be back to normal, if there is such a thing, in terms of a normalized backlog, faster speed to customer, and a normalized level of cancellations?
So I think our mindset is already normalized.
Okay.
We've unsubscribed from the pandemic, and we are operating at an exceptional level. Really, all we need to do is clear that backlog and get product to guests. So I would say beginning to mid Q1 next year would be a good goal.
So you think that most of our cancellations are still coming from the backlog, not the more recent sales that we've written?
A big chunk of them.
Got it. Do you think that this time of pivoting on a dime, rapid testing and experimentation, and surviving during these trials of stress and adversity will or have made us better, stronger, and more resilient? That they'll make us better on the other side of the pandemic? And if so, if yes, then how so?
So I think of this like an athlete that trains at altitude, or maybe a runner that runs with a weighted vest. So we've been kind of working with these impairments over the last couple of years and kind of succeeding in spite of those. And when those things go away, I think we'll just be, our fitness as a business will be incredible. We've built muscle, and I think we'll just be able to run super fast.
Well, that's exciting. I hope that comes to fruition.
Absolutely.
Exactly as you just described it. So let me test your memory on a milestone Broad River event. August 2018. Now, I know you started on August 28th, 2017, but this is 1 year later, August 2018. You had been with the company for about a year then. And do you recall our leadership summit when we brought in Joey Ryman and Inky Johnson? And as a surprise, we unveiled our organizational purpose statement, Furnishing Life's Best Memories. And if so, what do you remember about that summit?
It was just an incredible day, high energy, so many good speakers. For me, Inky Johnson was the highlight of that event, and really, his story about overcoming adversity and mindset, right? So I think one of his quotes is, play the hand that you were dealt like it was the hand that you wanted. Mm-hmm. And of course, if you don't know, you got to look up his story just about just overcoming the things that happened in his life.
Well, we still have his talk on YouTube. We'll put a link to his talk from that event in the show notes here.
Awesome.
So I know you've heard me say that purpose begins with identity. Does that statement resonate with you? And do you believe that it resonates with our retail leaders when they get to select their own identity for their store?
Yes, I see purpose as a compass, right? I mean, you have to know kind of who you are to know where you're going.
Okay. And identity then can be your North Star.
Of course.
I love it. Okay. So we've launched identities in retail ops. So take us through those and how they came about, or the story behind them.
So I'm super excited about this because we actually announced them this morning.
Oh, really?
To the team. So again, long overdue to have identities for retail operations. And all of them were really collaborative efforts with the three teams that I get to work with. So our in-store retail operations folks, our REMs, RECs, retail experience coordinators, they chose the name The Wizards. And it really aligns with the idea of Gandalf, but they are the magicians in the store. They do magic for guests. They solve problems. I absolutely love it. And then our sales audit team, they're going to be the River Watch. And think of them as the Coast Guard, really patrolling the river,
love it.
Keeping us in line. And then our inventory team, they're the CIA. So they are the chief inventory analysts, and they're like the national security for Broad River's assets.
I love it. You got the CIA, the River Watch, and the Wizards.
The Wizards.
So that's really cool. I can see your face light up when you describe them. So definitely have some passion there. Okay. On your 2-year anniversary of joining the company and 1 year following the launch of our organizational purpose statement, we transformed our leadership summit to a purpose summit. What do you recall about Purpose 828?
Yeah, so the big highlight for me of that event was Justin Barnes. And, I talked a little bit earlier about kind of this transition and kind of the inner turmoil I had during 2019. Justin talks about those. I think he talks about the subtle disagreements with disempowering labels can hijack your identity. And having that identity is kind of the key to sustainable growth. And that's something that really kind of sat with me. I think Justin also talked about the affirmations, and that's something that I've used, for a period of time. I had 20 affirmations on the wall of my shower that I'd read every morning. And it's just rewiring the stories that you tell yourself. And, it was about purpose. And for me, it was instrumental in landing kind of what I felt was my personal purpose. Can I talk a little bit more about that?
You sure can. This is your story. This is your episode.
So I think that year we also did the imperative, right? So imperative, I think, was also a big part in the shift for me. So imperative is a company we partnered with. They do a lot of engagement work with companies, and we did something with them called a purpose profile. And my purpose profile was a builder. And I actually wrote this down because I didn't want to mess it up and kind of just read it. And I think it's pretty prophetic when you think about what we do now in retail operations and really that journey of fulfillment that I've been talking about. So you develop and manage systems and processes to scale high quality impact. Standard procedures, leadership practices, and approaches must be designed so that everyone is set up for success. In complexity, you see the actionable patterns that drive innovation. This consistency allows for systems and tools to be scaled for greater impact.
Love it.
Wow.
There's so many assessments out there, but this was a purpose assessment that we did, and the builder was the one that came up with you, and it was great from Imperative. We were on the forefronts of that.
Yeah.
Very, very early, probably in the beta formation of that, and we did the peer-to-peer coaching and. I remember now how much you talked about that builder. And I think honestly, I think it takes a lot of courage on your part to not just keep running the race, but it wasn't the race you're intended to run. To say, I'm going to take a step back, do some self-reflection, and I'm going to be courageous enough to go a different direction. Not everyone would do that. So I think by people listening to your story, if they're wrestling with that, they'll have the courage to know, hey, it's going to be okay because I deserve to have fulfillment and to run the right race, the race that's been set out that I need to run. So
yeah, it was humbling.
Yeah. And Justin Barnes, he's a great friend. We've stayed in touch with him. He just came to Charlotte recently for the Around the Crown 10K race.
I saw that. You couldn't convince me to run with you.
No, but we'll get you next year.
Maybe next time.
Next year. Okay. Well, more recently, what we did convince you to go do was to join 16 of us at the University of Notre Dame for the Purpose Summit this past May. What can you share about the impact and learnings from that experience?
Yeah, this was an amazing event. And I think really one of the common themes through this event is kind of the shift of importance from money to time for employees. And then also mental health and the impact of that in the workplace, the impact of that on turnover. And so really it being our imperative to create environments where people feel safe and vulnerable and they find that balance and they find that their personal identity is served. And then I've got to talk about Rich Sheridan too. So bringing joy to work and then run the experiment.
Yeah, run the experiment. I listened to his book, Chief Joy Officer.
Me too.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a great one. That was a great experience. And we'll put the link to the Purpose Summit. They're now doing the Purpose Summit experience, so you can watch it in theaters throughout any cinema around the country. Okay, let's talk about thriving. Our word of the year this year is thrive. What does it mean for you to thrive?
So thriving for me is me being my best self outside of work. It's me being a great parent. It's me being a great friend. It's me taking care of my body, both physically and emotionally. And I think if I do all of those things well, I can thrive at work.
Okay. So it's taking care of yourself outside of work so that you can thrive at work.
Absolutely.
And it's interesting how some people would say, well, I've got to work so I can take care of things outside of work. And you're like, no, I need to take care of myself out here so I can take care of the things.
Yeah, it's the inside out.
Yeah. Well, what advice would you offer to someone else to help him or her thrive this year?
I think it would be down that vein. It's Brene Brown talks about put on your own oxygen mask first. Mm-hmm. And you see so many leaders that are so selfless and they give of themselves and they're available. But I think sometimes they do that at kind of a personal expense, and maybe they burn out or maybe they have emotional fatigue. So I think it's important to intentionally make sure that you're really taking care of yourself first.
So important. We've had some recent guests here, Brian and Kim Harkness, and they said the exact same thing. And we talked about bringing the oxygen mask down on yourself first, so that because you've got to be healthy before you can help others, and that's so important. So, what have you achieved over the last 2+ years that you're really proud of, that you'll look back on fondly?
Gosh, so much. I'm just I'm so proud of how our team performed during the pandemic, and we talked about kind of that training at altitude piece, right? I think we're breaking records and achieving some of our best performance in spite of the circumstances we have. So I can't even imagine how things will be when the pandemic is kind of ancient history. But it's the culture in that team and how they support each other. So you know that we have an REM team chat, and just seeing the engagement on that chat, how they encourage each other, support each other, train each other, it's sustainable. And I can just sit back and watch. It's absolutely amazing. And then also super excited that we were able to launch the knowledge base in the last 2 years, which I think is going to be, or I hope is something that will serve Broad River for years to come. Really kind of that one-stop shop for documentation, SOPs, processes, making it easy when somebody new joins us or somebody has a question. And again, something that I think is vital for sustainable growth.
Yeah. And we've had a knowledge base in CX, but you just installed one in retail ops.
Yeah.
And the thing about a knowledge base is it's not like a set it and forget it. It's always like moving and being updated. And so it's got to be maintained, right?
Alicia is amazing.
Yeah. Okay. So since you've been a memory maker here at the River, what is something that you've learned about yourself other than loving retail ops and finding as a builder, this builder profile, or about what you've been able to accomplish that has surprised even you?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I've learned at Broad River is self-awareness, and just being exposed to great people and great leaders that helped me kind of look inwards and see opportunities with who I was, my identity, my character, be willing to accept feedback, and ultimately change, right? And go from maybe that fixed mindset to a growth mindset.
You think you had a fixed mindset before?
A little bit.
Okay. And so I know this may be an awkward question because sometimes people don't like to talk about their level of success. But if I may, did you expect to achieve this level of success with Broad River?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Why not?
You know, I think I'll go back to what I said at the beginning where, you know, I'd come out of a company that went out of business, maybe tried something new that really wasn't fulfilling for me. And so I think when I arrived at Broad River, it was really about just surviving versus thriving. I wasn't thinking about the horizon. I was just thinking about, I need a job to support my family.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, Will. You've got a great mind for business and for retail. You're one of the greatest thinkers in retail today. And we see and have so much confidence in you. So we see a much probably brighter future and level of success. And hopefully you're starting to embrace some of that as it's being manifested.
Absolutely.
So you and the team are doing a phenomenal job. And the success that retail ops is having as a business owner or even as a president and CEO in my seat, and I know Manny feels the same way, just gives us such a level of confidence to continue to grow and to know that box is checked and that it's, you know, when your blind side's taken care of, you can go focus on things that are revenue generating and growing the business as opposed to fixing the business.
I appreciate that, Charlie.
It works really, really well. Okay, let's shift gears a bit.
All right.
So now that we're, about halfway through this podcast, 30 minutes in, let's get to know you. Since we haven't known you yet, I got a quick get to know Will Luke at your core icebreaker question for you.
All right.
When you think about your legacy and how you'd like others to think of you, what 3 words come to mind that you'd like to be said about you?
I think I'll go with maybe 3 concepts or hyphenated words, if you will.
Of course.
Self-aware.
Okay.
Problem solver, and trustworthy. I think it's important to me that I can be seen as responsible and trustworthy.
Self-aware counts as 1 word. That's hyphenated. And trustworthy.
Problem solver.
Problem solver. Oh, it's a little bit of a stretch. We'll count it as 1
Creative.
word. Creative. Hey, that's a better. They're both good. Solutions oriented. I digress. Well, let's move forward. But I do think we know you a little bit better. And trustworthy is 1 word and is a great word. But I do feel like we know you a little bit better. So we broke the ice. I know that it always takes a village to achieve phenomenal success like you've achieved. Who are some of the unsung heroes, colleagues of your world? Tell us what they do that help you.
So number one is going to be the REMs, really, standing at the front lines during the pandemic, dealing with guests that were frustrated, maybe dealing with HFCs that were frustrated. So I believe that so many of them were the glue that held their stores together during the pandemic. Our sales audit team, I mean, this team has to wake up every morning and kind of catch people making mistakes. And yet they do it with like such grace. They have relationships with people. And I think they're truly seen as a support and not a nuisance. And that doesn't come easily. Yeah. And then I have to call out some people inside our company. So I would shout out, actually Adam Robinson, right? I think the best team wins. He talks about the spaceship. If you were sending a spaceship and you were going to send the best people from your business, who would you put on your spaceship?
Is that how I should reframe the question? Maybe so.
It's your podcast.
Okay, yeah, well.
But I'd call out like Hope Stalker, Tim Subkowiak, Sam Bloom, just incredible workers.
Love it. Love it. Those are great. Okay. So I'm sure you've received some really good advice over the years. What's the best advice you've ever received?
I got a lot of advice in my career. I think the biggest piece of feedback I heard maybe hurt the most too, from Christian Adams. And I still have this written on the wall in my office. You might have seen it there. And that's, you can choose the method or you can choose the result, but you can't choose both. And for me, this was really just about sometimes I went fast or sometimes I went in maybe too direct. And then I'd get frustrated that I wasn't getting the result that I wanted. And I'd blame it on someone else instead of realizing that it was incumbent on me of a leader to tailor my approach, vary my methods to communicate with clarity, ultimately to get the result that we all wanted.
So that's the advice. You can choose the method or you can choose the result,
but not both.
But you can't choose both. Okay, got it. Let's say an REM starting with us today. What advice would you give to that person?
Gosh, I would say take lots of notes. There's so much information. Don't assume that you can remember it all. I'm a note taker, clearly. I would say fall in love with the knowledge base and learn how to use it. And then I would talk about kind of going back to that taking care of yourself, right? It can be an exhausting job. You're running around all day and just making sure that you don't become burned out yourself.
Yeah. So if being a student and a learner or curious maybe is an important quality or characteristic to being a successful REM, how do you like quiz for that or assess that during the interview process?
Gosh, how do you assess for somebody that's learning? I think it's just by asking great questions, Charlie, and asking, maybe a question about feedback that they received in their career. That's one of the questions I like to ask. I like to ask maybe about a process that they've impacted, or if you had a magic wand at your last job, kind of something that you would change. And I think that shows maybe if they have a creative mind.
Got it. Because you got to dig in. You got to dig in and learn and take a lot of notes and be a student for a period of time to immerse yourself in, because there is some, but once it clicks, it clicks and that it becomes tribal, so and intrinsic. What do you believe are, other than being maybe a great learner, what do you believe are the critical qualities or characteristics that most contribute to success as an REM?
As an REM, number one would be organization. They have to be exceptionally organized. And then the second one, they've got to be really good at saying no. REMs can easily become enablers in the store, and there's always going to be something to fix. There's always going to be a demand in the store. So their ability to set healthy boundaries, to kind of teach people how to do things instead of doing it for them, so that they're not just spending their whole day solving problems, that's going to take them away from what their primary responsibility is.
Yeah, the whole teach a man a fish versus give a man a fish.
Absolutely.
Can I ask you that same question regarding a sales auditor? Would the qualities or characteristics be dissimilar or similar?
I think with a sales auditor, they have to trust the data, right? And they have to kind of put their emotions or their feelings on the shelf and let the data guide them to that decision, not the other way around, right? Where I think something's fishy in that store, so I'm going to go looking for something to prove it.
Yeah. So if you could go back to your first day on August 28th, 2017. You've already gotten the phone calls from Manny, Christian, and Todd. What would you tell your younger self about what life is going to be like at the river?
I would talk about the fulfillment that I'd find. I would talk about how I'd meet people that would help me really find the greatest personal fulfillment in my life. And it's going to be an exciting journey.
So you tell yourself there's a lot to be excited about.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Maybe more than you're probably expecting.
Way more.
Awesome. What is your favorite thing about our culture here at the river? And in your opinion, what is it that makes our culture special?
So, favorite thing about our culture to me would be collaboration. And I think going back to maybe experiences in other careers, especially as you grow, is getting all of those people in the room and those people sharing their information versus hoarding their information. So I love that we've got the culture of collaboration. And when you weave that in with growth mindset, it means that we're always innovating. We're always thinking of the next problem to solve. And it's the idea of being proactive versus reactive, right? The fence versus the hospital.
Yeah. Well, and with collaboration, you have to have humility to be willing to go out and talk to others. And you can't be protective of your own information. You can't hoard your information and be siloed.
Yeah.
You really got to break down those borders and have those open collaborative conversations. Okay. I know that you're a student of habits. I know this about you. What are your best daily habits that have served you well or that are currently serving you well today?
So I think my most prominent habit, the one that's followed me for the longest, is around organization, but I'll get specific. So I was actually running the H.H. Gregg store in South Boulevard. And, you've got a retail store. I need to get this thing done. I need to call back this customer. I need to complete this training. I need to go fix this. I need to go do a truck. There's 1,000 things. And I found that I was going home at the end of the day and my brain was spinning, trying to remember all the things that I had to do. You wake up in the middle of the night, feeling like you had to write it down. So I created this ritual where every morning I came in and I had a piece of tag paper and I'd have my running to-do list on that tag paper, fold it in half, put it in my pocket, and then cross it off during the day. The next morning, I would take that list, copy the things that weren't done onto the new list and add the new stuff. And it's really a habit that stuck with me. So now I've tried apps for productivity, Microsoft OneNote, and actually right now I've got a whiteboard in my kitchen at home. So I've got my must-dos for today and my must-dos for the week. And it really keeps me from not getting distracted on what the most important things I need to do are. The second thing is, one of the most impactful books that I've read is Principles by Ray Dalio. And I think one of his principles is surround yourself with the most believable people that disagree with you and try and learn kind of why. And so I think you got to stress test your view, and you got to know the people that you can go to for feedback, not just about things you're working on, but about yourself. And you've got to be able to take that feedback with humility. So fortunately, we've got a lot of great people inside of Broad River that can help me with that. And then I've got some great friends outside of work too.
Okay. Well, that's great. So the list, you're a daily list person, and that's one of your best habits, but it's analog. It's not digital.
I find that analog has worked better for me.
Yeah, a lot of it.
There's some satisfaction in crossing.
There's some science and data behind that. So I just want to make sure I heard that correctly. I love that. I know you're also an avid reader and student of just business and knowledge and various topics. So how do you sharpen your saw? What do you do to improve your skill set?
Yeah, so I do love reading. Currently reading a book called The Body Keeps the Score. It's written by a Dutch psychiatrist that has done a lot of work around PTSD and antidepressants. So really an impactful book for me. And then when you kind of bring that into the conversation about mental health at work and providing a safe and vulnerable space for people, something that I'm really sitting with. But to sharpen my saw for me, I think it's being outside. And maybe that's not the answer you were looking for, but I found, especially in the last few years, that when I have time by myself outside, I can think most creatively. I can access my emotions. I just have so much insight, and it recharges me to where I'm ready to kind of come back into my life or come back to work to be my best.
And the name of the book again?
The Body Keeps the Score.
The Body Keeps the Score. We will put that in the show notes.
Bessel van der Kolk, I think.
We'll figure it out and put it in the show notes. And in terms of like the answer I was looking for, I was only looking for the answer you wanted to give. So it was the answer I was looking for. So thank you for that. Okay. You alluded to this earlier, so I'm going to go ahead and ask it because I had it on my list. If you could change one thing about the company today with the wave of a magic wand, what would it be, Will?
So I've been thinking about this question, and I think my answer maybe is a little bit more situational versus kind of global to the company. If I could wave that wand, I'd get product to our guests, right? It's the situation we're in, and we have so many guests that have waited 3, 6, 9, 12 months for their product. They deserve their product. They've been loyal to us. And then also, all of our memory makers and HFCs that would love to see that product delivered as well.
Yeah. And I wish we could just like make it wave a wand or snap our fingers and make it happen. But it's going to take time to continue to whittle it down.
Of course.
It's just like if I'm 20 pounds overweight and I want to lose it, I can't, just stop eating for a week and lose 20 pounds overnight. You have to kind of sustainably kind of march it down. And
you need your atomic habit.
That's right. You got to have those micro little daily habits. But we are making good progress on that front, and the supply chain is happening and working better to kind of we're going to get there. I'm very confident we're going to get there. And then we'll have to figure out, like, now that we take the weighted vest off, like how quickly can we run to get it to them moving forward. Okay. So let's say that it's my time to move on and find fulfillment in something else. And I've decided to retire, and I gave you the keys to the company. And you're the new president and CEO of Broad River Retail. And hey, guess what? Here's your lucky day. Today's your first day in the new role. And I know you're a thoughtful, introspective person. So after reflecting on that, what would be your first order of business?
After the panicking?
Yeah. Well, panicking could be part of it. But what would be your first? Hopefully panicking is not the first order of business.
After the panicking and after making sure that you were on speed dial. I think I'd come back to collaboration, right? So one of the things that fuels me and makes me so excited is when I'm in a room with creative and smart people, and we're sharing ideas and we're innovating. And I think during the pandemic, we've kind of put our heads down and it's become about survival. And I don't know that we've spent as much time kind of together innovating. And so I would love just to foster more opportunities for we can get back in the same rooms and kind of close the door to today's distractions, kind of the weeds of the business, if you will, and think about the future, right? And dream and innovate. We've been so stuck in like today survival for the last 2 years. It's time for us to dream. Yeah.
And to do what we wanted to do probably 2 or 3 years ago, to start setting out the rolling 3 to 5 year vision, the 2025, the 2027, the 2030, and to talk about the type of company we want to build and grow. And those would be, it's kind of hard to do that when you're in a foxhole and you got, of course, you can't get product to customers and that sort of thing. But now I think as we start to kind of the fog to lift and back to normal, and I do agree, we all learn differently, but those in-person collaboration like moments, and we talked about with remote work and not, we have to be intentional with having those opportunities to kind of gather and have those spontaneous moments of collaboration together. That's something we got to get back to. Okay. So you just talked about the book that you're reading. So is there any other book that you're reading?
I'm actually reading this one like the paper copy. So I started listening to it and I'm like, this is so heavy. I'm going to need to go through this like page by page to process it.
I'm not even sure how you came about that book, but that might be an interesting question. Well, other than Stories from the River, do you regularly listen to podcasts?
I do. I mean, I don't drive as much as I used to, but actually my favorite podcast is called Beautiful Anonymous. And I doubt you've ever heard of it, but the host is a comedian, but I wouldn't really say that it's a comedy. And he has an anonymous call with a stranger that dials in, no names exchanged from the stranger. And I think because of that, the conversation gets really raw, really vulnerable, and it just explores like people at their darkest moments, people at their people at their best moments. There's a beauty and a humor in it. He asks great questions. He shows great empathy. And for me, it's just, kind of as the title suggests, there's a beauty in getting that snapshot into somebody else's life without any kind of filters.
I want to say someone's mentioned that on this podcast before, but I just can't recall who. But we'll put the link to that in the show notes as well. Beautiful Anonymous. And I have not listened to an episode, but I've heard of it somewhere along the line. Do you watch television shows?
Never.
Okay. Well,
rarely. I'll say rarely.
Okay. All right.
Never's too aggressive.
Well, when you stop working for the day and have some free time for yourself or your family, what do you like to do for fun or to relax?
Take the doors off the Jeep and head to the mountains. So I love to be outside, walking with my kids, walking with my friends, fires, making music around the fire, listening to music, traveling.
What's your favorite type of music?
Gosh, that's a tough question.
We'll come back to that. You do have a favorite band, though, that you like to see live. We've talked about.
Billy Strings?
Yeah. Billy Strings.
I don't know that I'd put him as the favorite.
Okay.
I mean, I don't want to, it's like picking a favorite kid.
Fair enough. Okay. Well, let me ask you this in a superlative format. What is the best concert you've been to in the last year or two?
So I've probably been to about 20 concerts in the last 2 years. And maybe a little bit of recency bias, but last month I saw the Chicks at Red Rocks. So great band, even greater kind of venue. So, I mean, it was just such a meaningful, emotional experience.
Okay. And what's the next concert you're going to?
Elton John in 3 days.
I'm going to the Elton John concert as well. I have a funny story about that. I think you've heard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So my wife and I are going.
Elton John 2022.
Yeah, we're going to the real Elton John 2022 concert. Okay. How many national parks have you been to since COVID hit?
21.
21 national parks. What's been your favorite?
Gosh, Canyonlands in Utah, Capitol Reef in Utah, Mesa Verde, Colorado, and Joshua Tree. I mean, there's a ton of others, but those would be the top shelf.
What's the next national park on your list to visit?
Acadia in Maine in about 3 weeks.
That's going to be a great trip and a great time to go see it.
It's going to be a little chilly, but had to squeeze one more in this year.
There you go. I love it. I love it. Okay. To someone who's not a memory maker and is thinking of coming to the river, what advice would you offer to that person?
Prepare for growth.
That's a good one.
Prepare to be pushed and kind of be open to it, right? I mean, I don't think anyone comes to work and wants to be mediocre. And if you embrace it at Broad River, it will unlock doors that you never thought would unlock for you.
We will only grow as far as our people will take us.
Absolutely.
And we want to see our people grow because your success is our scorecard here at the river. Hey, before I let you off the hot seat, I asked a few folks about you and what you mean to them. If it's okay, can I read some of these?
Sure.
This is from Melanie Maldonado, who was a Founder Scholarship Fund recipient for us recently. And she's now an area operations manager in the East, correct?
Absolutely.
Recently promoted. So she says, Will has been integral to my leadership development, especially these last few months. He has given me clear feedback that challenges me to look at things from different angles. Will leads with purpose and a vision for smoother operations that will benefit everyone. I also appreciate that he strives for a healthy work-life balance through setting boundaries, and it is inspiring to see in a corporate/retail world. Here's from Hope, who was on your spaceship that you mentioned earlier.
Absolutely.
Will is always my first stop when I need someone to tell me something I hadn't thought of. And believe me, there have been many times. He is always on the lookout for new ways to tackle old issues, and we've worked closely on several projects in this vein, Authorize.net, DocuSign, and AR credits, to name a few. I'm always amazed at the level of research and detail that Will puts into each proposal or project, and I think I learn something each time we work together.
Wow.
From Stacy McCormick. When I think of Will, the following words come to mind: intelligent, caring, efficient, precise, excellence, quality, collaborative, innovative, automation. Will loves to stimulate discussion, challenge the status quo, and improve the already great. He has been a great partner to me and the retail team and has certainly improved Broad River Retail. Just a few more. From Lynn Knowles. One of my favorite memories of Will is from a walkthrough in our Northeast Columbia location 3 years ago or so. Performance in the store was below our expectations, so we were there to collaborate on ways to improve their assortment and set them up for success. He challenged everyone participating in the walkthrough to ask themselves, what if I am wrong? Essentially,
it's Ray Dalio.
Yeah, what if I'm wrong? Essentially asking each of us to erase our preconceived notions, analyze the facts, and move forward with a new plan. I will never forget that and frequently ask myself that question. From that one walkthrough and comment, the collaboration on countless projects and opportunities have been impacted for the better at Broad River Retail and even on our merchandising team. Thank you for challenging me to be better, Will.
Wow.
From Molly Teish. Will is one of those leaders you will never forget. I love his passion for retail operations, and I believe that we are stronger with him as our director. He has taught me to become a leader in retail operations. I really enjoy working with Will and hope to continue to work with him for a long time. I just got two more.
Wow.
Kevin Kinman. Will has been a great friend and colleague who I have had the pleasure of working alongside here at Broad River for the past 5 years. In the early years, he and I spent many a months competing against each other when he was regional manager of the North, chasing budgets, cowbells, and the number one spot at the end of each month. When Will earned one of the most important operational positions in the company, Director of Retail Operations, I was extremely proud of him. Will could write the definition of this position in his sleep. He is a maverick when it comes to ops, and the position is tailored to who he is. Will is one of the most laser-focused individuals I know. He is passionate, very interested in results, explains and teaches with a point of easy understanding, and will not accept mediocre for an answer. Being passive won't pass. Will and I often share lyrics, so when I say, meet you all the way, he knows I mean business. Thanks, Will, for all you do.
That's awesome.
And for Manny, Will is a thoughtful leader who loves bringing teams and memory makers together to collaborate on key initiatives. His sense of urgency and desire to improve things has been a blessing to retail ops in Broad River. I enjoy Will's passion for solving big opportunities. He truly lives out our purpose of furnishing life's best memories.
Wow.
Anything else you'd like to share, Will?
No, I'm just sitting with all of that and really humbled.
Well, you deserve it. You've been a tremendous leader. I'm so glad that you found your fulfillment and purpose and path in what you're doing today. One of the greatest minds in retail and in retail ops today. We're so lucky to have you, fortunate to have you. Look forward to working with you. We can solve big problems and cast a wide net.
Let's go.
Yeah, we got it, baby. We got it. So that's the Will Luke episode, guys. Hey, we got to figure out a Broad River way to do this, but wherever you're watching or listening, mash that like button or that subscribe button. Hey, leave us a comment on social media. Tell us what you think about this episode. This is probably going to be one of your favorite episodes you've heard from Stories from the River. We try to bring you fresh, new content every Wednesday morning from the field, from directly from the source. This is the purest form of getting deep beneath the river and understanding what it's like at Broad River Retail. And it's the true story, man. It's the true stories. And Will, you've been real with us. And so if you're listening on Apple, hit that mash or subscribe button, mash that subscribe or like button, or Google or Amazon, Spotify, wherever your podcast player of choice is. And Will, thank you so much. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you for having me, Charlie.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate it.